email copywriting by storm with his own personal list. I interviewed Daniel a while back for an episode that will be released on Copy Chief Radio Tuesday, the 23rd. And I had to talk to Daniel because he's become one of these people that I read every single email he writes. Like it's like a friend is emailing me. I save it. Sometimes I read, I binge read like 3 or 4 in a row. And it's just delivers every time. I put him up there in the class of other people I feel that way about: Laura Belgray, Chris Warzakowski, of course, people like Ben Settle, who are just masters of what Ben Settle calls infotainment, right? Like creating a world that you get to become a part of, and deliver somehow every single email. So congrats again on that, Daniel. It's like a thrill to watch what you do and how it's evolving.
Thank you very much.
And so just so you have some context, Daniel, I think your entire business is basically off your list right now, right? You're not necessarily working for clients. I know you work with the author in Australia, the #1 selling author there. But aside of that, you're pretty much, your list is your income.
That's pretty much, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Really cool. Really cool. So this is inspirational to anybody, any freelance copywriter who is wondering, should you have a list? It's not that you need to try to do what Daniel's done and make that your sole income, but it's a very inspiring example of the power of a list. And, I always say this: teach what you're learning. That's all you have to do. When I started my first blog and email list back in, who knows what, they had horse and buggies then, there were no cars. So all I was doing was teaching what I was learning. I had no agenda for it. I was just a little lonely. Everybody in my house and my neighbors were tired of hearing about this copy thing they didn't understand, and I needed an outlet to explore and grow a voice. And that's a great way to use it. So the reason we're here is because we do a cool thing in Copy Chief called Bullet the Podcast. And how that works is I take an episode of my podcast, Copy Chief Radio, that I think is a particularly good one, and I release it to the members of my community about a week or so early. And we run a contest. Everybody gets to listen to the episode in advance. Plus we give them a transcribe, and their job is to write 10 bullets compelling the would-be listener to stop what they're doing and go listen to the episode right now. It's a great exercise for copywriting. As you know, bullets are critically important no matter what kind of copywriting you do. And so it's just a great way for us to have some fun, exercise the craft, and we make it competitive. And we've had a bunch of submissions. And then Daniel's offered to come on with me and look at the bullets. We've both been reviewing them, looking at them. We've picked our winners. But before we announce the winners, by the way, the winner gets their bullets in their promotion with a link to them in their website. Daniel's generously offered to do the same for his list. And so he's going to promote this episode, use the bullets, and celebrate the winner, which is super cool. That's like double the impact of this contest this time. So thanks for doing that, Daniel. Appreciate that. And so, yeah, man. So we're going to dive in.
They saved me an email as well.
What's that?
Well, I got someone to write my email for me. It's basically what
exactly. That's the beauty of it. We get something for all our efforts, and free email.
Yeah.
And so it's really just a chance at fame and glory. The winners, of course, will get a credit to the Copy Chief swag closet and go pick out something they like and wear it with pride. So the way I like to do this is, rather than, because look, we're all about celebrating the fact that writers write. It's what we do. And yes, we're judging these bullets, but we don't want people to be intimidated or ever embarrassed now or in the future about what they submitted. I know I've posted a lot of things in various forms throughout the year that I wouldn't want exposed when I was coming up. And so what I do is I take all the bullets that people submitted in Copy Chief and I put them in a document, no names. And I even try to forget what order they're in or who wrote them, although we have picked the winner. So what you're going to see is all the submissions, and Daniel and I are going to comment on some of the trends and patterns we see in those bullets, and then you're going to see the winners. All right. So really educational, really fun. Anything to add to that before we dive in and look at the bullets, Daniel?
No, I'm really looking forward to getting into it.
All right, let's do it. Let me share the old screen here. I don't want to do it that way. I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it this way. Perfect. All right, cool. Hopefully everybody can see this. Make your screen big. This is the first submission, and I got to jump over to the doc. So let's just start with the very first bullet anyone submitted. Daniel reveals the ninja training that will save you from turning into a copywriting hamster while developing your unique voice. This secret can instantly transform you into the Jimi Hendrix of copywriting with a horde of raging fans. So I'll let you go first on this batch, Daniel, and then I have some comments.
You want me to read them out, or just give my impressions on the?
Do you have notes on? You can point out any from this batch that you want to, and then what you thought overall.
Sure. I mean, in this batch, I really liked the third one here, which is how a sound enhancer trick used by Grammy winner artists can catapult you into the A-listers Hall of Fame. I think this came from a line in the podcast where I mentioned using an EQ filter on people's personalities, which is certainly something unique that I do. But every other bullet that picked that up, because it was a cool thing to mention, called it an EQ filter. I really liked here making it a sound enhancer trick used by Grammy winner artists, because that's something so unrelated to copywriting that it instantly gets you curious about what's going on. And this was the only entry that did that. So on that particular bullet. So I thought that bullet was really cool. I did notice there is, and this happens throughout all the bullets, but certainly in this set, there's a few bullets. So the second one says next episode, right? Starts with that. The fourth one says Gary V. Who. The fifth one starts with intervention. The seventh one is what the heck is this? I've seen people use this technique where they'll put a little comment before the bullet, and that can be good, but I feel like it's something you want to be doing one in every 20 or 30 bullets, not one in every 2 or 3, because when you start sounding like you have a predictable rhythm to your bullets, the reader gets bored. And you really want to mix it up. And especially if you're using the same device over and over again. So this is 4 or 5 bullets in a batch of 10, uses the same technique. And I would just, if it's not terrible, it doesn't ruin a bullet at all. But I would just encourage whoever wrote these bullets to try and mix the style up a little bit to keep it interesting for the reader. It doesn't kill a bullet, but you just don't want to be doing the same thing in every bullet. And for example, saying Gary V. Who, that doesn't necessarily mean anything to a reader. That means something to you as the copywriter after you've been through this episode and you know what we were talking about. But if you just read Gary V. Who, it's just, you think, what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything to me. And these are your first 2 words in the bullet. So prime real estate. So I would encourage you to not rely on that device so much. Use it when you have something really cool or jarring or arresting to say. But in a set of 10 bullets, I'd only want to see it once or twice, to be honest.
That is a great point. And something that's come up over the years of doing this contest is you have to remember where your reader is in this process. And this is a pattern we've seen quite a bit, is somebody using the curse of knowledge to write a crafty bullet that anybody who has listened to the episode would elbow you over. It's a nice little, hey, it's a good one. But you're forgetting that the person you're writing to doesn't have this knowledge yet. And so it's completely irrelevant. That's a great point. Yeah, one thing that I'll point out on this first batch, in a bit of a theme I saw in some of the entries, was, you have to, this isn't, I forget who said it, but something like, if you can see the writer, the writing is not doing its job, right? And I saw a lot of examples of people working really hard to show off their craftiness with language, and I get it. We're writers, and in some instances, that's a great thing to do. You want to have flavor. You want to have. These are very colorful bullets. They're fun to read, but remembering your avatar here, who is someone who's busy scrolling through email, like, oh, it's another CCR. Oh, Daniel Throssell, I've heard of him. What's going on in this episode? They're not going to stop and try to figure out what you mean by anything. And so if you're emphasizing your cleverness more than clarity as to what they'll get, you got 10 shots here to make them, at least one of them, stop and go, oh my God, I got to go figure this out right now. Like, this sounds amazing. I can see how I'm going to apply this. So it's got to be about them, not about you. And to me, that's where this batch, while crafty, misses the mark of what copy's intended to do.
Yep.
All right, cool. So that's that one. Let's go down to the second one. Okay, starts with, I always read the first bullet because it's the first one. And to me, if I got 10 and I'm in a contest, I'm going to make sure the first one is like, bam, So how winning a challenge and the subsequent conversation with Ramit Sethi launched Daniel Throssell's copywriting career. So for me, that's interesting. Like, I do want to know how that went down. There's two interesting people here. But the structure of this bullet for me, it takes me too long to get to who's involved and what's going on. How winning a challenge and the subsequent conversation is quite a mouthful. And if it's a mouthful, it's a mindful. One of the greatest simple things that Paris Lampropoulos ever said to me and taught me while reviewing some of my copy, talk about intimidating. He said, you always have to remember one thought per sentence. And he said, this is never more true in bullets and in VSLs if you're using text on a screen, right? If you get ahead of the reader, or you make them work to unpack what you're saying, and now you're over here and they're back here, gone. We lost them. And so having to unpack the subsequent conversation doesn't follow the Flesch-Kincaid rule of keeping it, simple. We're looking for one syllable words whenever possible. So for me, it doesn't. Another thing I want to point out, something I always tell people to do before they submit their bullets, and I think didn't happen in this case, you have to read them aloud and hear how they sound. How winning a challenge and the subsequent conversation. Hard to say and hard to read.
Yeah, on that bullet too, Kevin, I would encourage copywriters, like whoever's writing a bullet like this, think about your market as well, because as a copywriter, you have been exposed to, most likely, I mean, this is me drawing on my knowledge of copywriters, having been one myself, and I know all you guys are too. The copywriters have listened to a lot of podcasts that start with something like that. They've studied a lot of other copywriters. They've heard all the origin stories. And it's not that they don't want to hear origin stories, but there is an element of, this is not the first time I've ever heard wow, copywriter was doing something totally random and then they discovered copywriting and that's how they got into it. So if your first bullet is going to be an origin story bullet, it has to be really, really good. There has to be something really shocking about it. Otherwise, I would have been tempted, if I were entering this contest, I probably would not have bulleted the origin story unless I had to, because I know it's not. I know it's the first thing in the podcast, but I've done podcast bullets before for several podcasts where I just leave the origin story bullet off, because I know that in almost every podcast someone gets, the first bullet is going to be how they got started, because that's always the first question people ask. So you want to try and think about what your market knows. Like, they've probably been exposed to a lot of bullets for podcasts where the first bullet is how so-and-so got their start. And it's not that this is a bad thing to write, but If the reader has seen a bunch of bullets like this, where the first one is about that, then it becomes a bad thing. You have to remember the context as well.
That's a great point, right? It's like once you start listening, and you hear the voices, and now you're engaged and you've gone through the effort to listen, you're going to listen to the origin story, and it might be amazing. But the promise of that is not that interesting because, like you said, it's kind of predictable, and that's usually where interviews start. Great point. Again, on the positive tip, these are tight. They're kind of short, but again, they're using the curse of knowledge is in the way. This one at 1240, a grease slide, a voice recorder, and no edits. How Kevin's favorite Throssell email came to be. I don't know what about that. What I have to go find out. Right. Getting a director's view of the moment. How 2 years of daily storytelling allowed Daniel to perfect his skill. Cool, but perfect his skill could be ramped up. Could be juiced up. So, okay, cool. Good stuff. We'll go on to number 3 here. All right. Again, just reading the first one.
Sorry, I don't have any information about that.
Google doesn't know what we're being listened to. We're being monitored. Don't mention any government agency.
It's copywriting AI. It's learning from you, Kevin.
That's right. Jasper is spying on us.
Jasper's tapped into your house. They're training based on this call.
All right. How to develop your own voice as a writer that's strong, unique, and fun to read using Daniel's copywriter flight simulator technique, so your writing is 100% you and your self-editing instincts are lit AF. Again, like I love that there's a lot of information in a single sentence there, but again, for me, it's too much information. It's a lot to follow, and if I'm already a huge fan of Daniel Throssell and I read this, I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to hear what this is about. She did a good job of choosing the first thing that not being right, kind of mundane. But again, if you read aloud, it's going to make the brain work.
Yeah, in general, on these bullets, what I felt is that there's a lot of flowery language, but with bullets, you need to start with the core idea of the bullet. Is it something that I desperately need to know? And then make sure you can say yes to that, and then build up with as many words as you need to keep making it better. As soon as added words stop making it better, stop adding words. So sometimes your bullets can be like 5 lines, bills it's okay to pay late, what never to eat on an airplane, stuff like that. And they're really powerful bullets. They're really short because they have a strong idea. So this one at 733 here, right? Binge-worthy email. And again, that's that technique of using a little phrase before the bullet, which I think is throughout these bullets was a bit overused for most entries. But binge-worthy email, learn Daniel's philosophy about beating the competition that doesn't just clobber other marketers in the inbox. It blows Netflix and Hulu out of the water. Doing this can make your email list so profitable you can stop client work forever. I mean, nice little tag on the end in the brackets, but this is a lot of words built out to support a not so strong idea. If you pair this bullet back, the core idea there is learn Daniel's philosophy about beating competition. Now, learn Daniel's philosophy is a really flat promise for a copywriter, at least. No one wants to learn a philosophy. There's no promise baked in, but that's disguised in all this language, which makes it sound bullety. And that's something you want to avoid doing, because as copywriters, we can tend to trick ourselves. We can take a flattish idea like learn a philosophy and pack it with so much bullet language that it looks like John Carlton wrote the bullet, and we're like, they look the same. But the difference between us and what John Carlton did is that John Carlton built his bullet around this really cool idea that he could have said in 3 words, and it would have been just as powerful. But John stacked on all this stuff and made it even more oomph. If we add the oomph when we haven't got a core idea what we're building it on, all we do is make a bloated bullet. When the reader reads that, they're like, oh, cool. Oh, wait, what? Like, what was the promise of that? So try and start from the right point is my advice. And in general, I think in this set is something that will be a good a good idea to do. There were some good bullets in here, like let go of this one rule and your emails make you money while you sleep. Okay, you know that's a good promise. But there at 11:30, the reason why having your own list is like a New York City comedy club, and how taking the stage in this way not only deepens your own creativity, it builds a bond with your readers that turns them into faithful customers that think you have a friend. Firstly, it's really long, and secondly, you like pretty much gave away everything. The only thing that you didn't give away in that bullet was why is the list like a club? But frankly, I don't care because you told me all the stuff I need to know. So try and make sure the core idea that you're building the bullet on is something that I really need to know before you go ahead with building it out, is my advice for this person.
Yeah, that's a good point. But this one at 8:28, I think if you just nix that first line, it's a pretty good bullet. How to use the Throssell EQ filter to transform your boring existence into character-driven copy, killing writer's block for good and giving you unlimited content ideas. But because it starts with this kind of, hey, having this problem and want to get over it, it kind of, it's like, what if I'm not having that problem? Then you know, but aside of that, the EQ filter, like we said, is, I always love that in these, Daniel, like there's always one thing that everybody lands on and like, oh, that's a bullet. And the EQ filter was the one for this one. Pretty much everybody had that in there. So it's so fun to compare how people approach that. Like you said, somebody took it and exploited it on a higher level. That's great thinking. All right, cool. Let's go on to the next tier. Again, we're opening with, I'm going to move on from the first one and break that rule and just not judge them based. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start reading, and when one grabs me, I'm going to read that full bullet. Okay, it only took me two. I'm going to say, play dress up. That's kind of interesting. How this childhood game can make you nail your tone, style, and voice in less than a year. Okay, so the bullet had me excited. Play dress up. I'm like, what is that? You know, what could that mean? A childhood game. So I'm curious. I'm kind of going through my mind going, what could that be? This thing about curiosity is like people are trying to solve. They're trying to out trick you. It's like instant game show, right? But you have to use that in a way that ramps it up, but doesn't let them down. And that's, unfortunately, the end of this bullet lets me down. In less than a year. Who has a year? I'll give this episode 20 minutes. You better tell me now.
Yeah, I love the play dress up thing. That really caught my eye. In fact, I thought bullets where was it? The one you've touched a nerve when people feel compelled to perform this key action. Perform this key action, by the way. Just say do this. But people feel compelled to perform this key action. Just say when people do this. You know, you don't need all those words to say something less. Kevin Rogers' proven method to measure his audience's temperature. I like that as a concept, right? Well, what was Kevin doing to measure his audience's temperature? And if you can link that to copywriting as well, that's a really good thing to do. So I love that idea. And there was one more in here. I think that how to arm wrestle with Netflix and snatch their subscribers under their nose. That was a good idea. I mean, I think I think I want to link it to copywriting a little bit more because it's very general. You know, what does arm wrestle? It's saying arm wrestle with Netflix is probably not an image you need. Just how to snatch Netflix's subscribers under their nose and make them read your emails instead would be a better way to take that bullet than having the arm wrestle with Netflix, because that's a bit misleading in general. Right. But I thought these were good. Some of them I felt gave away a bit too much in the bullet. Yeah. The goldfish span myth. I don't need to listen to the podcast to know what that's going to be now, because you just told me what it is. Right. Or even greasing the slide, a flawless technique like that. That gives it away too. The drama switch, you gave it away. So I think try and hold a little bit more info back would be a good thing to do with some of these.
Yeah, and I think you can take a little bit of artistic license with the quote you're using as well. Like the "I hate you" one, I probably would have said, "It's 2 a.m. I hate you," and ended the quote there, and not given away that it's a technique you use, because again, like you said, it kind of reveals what's happening. It's 2 a.m. I hate you. How to use the Howard Stern effect to get even haters to not be able to stop reading your stuff or something like that, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, good stuff. Let's go on to the next one so we can get through all these. Okay, again, I got to point at the first one. We're one thought per sentence, and never more important than in bullets. And we're just asking the reader to do so much here. How sleeping in, binge watching TV, and neighbor stalking dupes procedural traps. Man, like I every time I read that, I was like, what is it? I gotta like
I got really caught on this one.
Sit and think what that means. Dupes procedural traps. And so we cannot try to put our cleverness or intelligence in front of clarity in what we're trying to compel people with.
Yeah, I think in general there was too much flowery language in these bullets for sure. I mean, you can even see how long the list looks, and that's something to be wary of with bullets as well. That they have a very visual element before anyone even reads them, and especially this is just getting worse and worse with people reading online. They make snap judgments about whether they want to read something before they even read it. So they see something like this where every paragraph is 3 lines long. Every bullet is 3 lines long, and they think this is going to be hard. And, you know, your brain just makes that decision immediately. And that's why short bullets are really good to mix in there because it feels less intimidating. But here there was a lot of flowery language. This EQ filter method makes meh copy worth a chew and turns a mild wife into mama grizzly bear with the sole responsibility to slay anything and anybody that gets in the way of her cubbies. It's just too many words. And you're making the reader do a lot of work to get through.
Yeah, I just walked away from you at the bar as you were saying that. If that was the title of your book, I'd be like, yeah, I'll check it out. Take care, man. You know, here's the funny thing. I love what you said about how people behave these days. I have the privilege of having 2 teenagers in my house, right? And so I will just observe them and how they scroll their phones or review any kind of content. And what they do is, unless it's, you know, a short or TikTok, you know, even then, you know, if it's any kind of length of video, what they'll do is they're like, oh, I'll see them go, oh, this is interesting. And within like 10 seconds, they click it to see how long it is. Like, what am I getting into here? What are you asking me for? And it's like, better be damn good if it's over a minute, you know? And again, we don't normally, I think we talked about this in our interview. We talked about Ramit and not writing to short attention spans. You have to, but that's email. These are bullets. And the promise is, a bullet. I always tell people this. It's, imagine it, you're shooting somebody in the head with it. You're trying to like penetrate their skull and get into their brain. It has to be, you know, a bullet doesn't like saunter up and like chit chat with you.
Right. What you'll notice even on Facebook and YouTube nowadays, like even those things which were already about targeting ADD to begin with, like they've gone into the short video thing, right? Where it's just, you don't even have to wait for the thumbnail, click the video at the end. It's like a 10-second video and then you just flick and the next one is there. Yeah. Like the ADD is off the charts, and this is your competition. And you just have to be so careful with your copy. I think the difference with emails and what I'm doing is when your email is the experience itself, and that's my goal with my emails, like the email is the experience, then it's okay to take longer because that's what people want. That's the thing they're going for. But the bullets are not the experience. The bullets are never the experience for someone. Like if you're writing bullet copy, it's just got a goal to get
somebody to write that in the comments. The bullet is not the experience, man. That's a nugget, brother. That's so good. An email is an experience, especially if you have a really plugged in list. Bullet is not the experience. It's a tease. It's not even a movie trailer. It's a tagline. That's all it is. It's really good. Okay, cool. Oops. There we go. All right, let me scroll down. All right, let me just make sure we're gonna have time. We might have to go a little faster, just for our own sake, because I know you have.
I think some of the things started to repeat as well. So
yeah,
it'll save us.
All right, I'm gonna scroll through at this point and look for things that it's like if I'm scrolling, if we're doing what we're talking about, and you know, being total short attention, like what's gonna jump out at me? We already looked at these. Surprising way. Okay, check your inbox stuck out at me. Why the check your inbox model felt boring and led to the creation of the parallel welcome sequence with wild choose your adventure stories. Yeah, again, I think we're giving away too much here. Yeah.
Right. That was great for me as well. I mean, saying why the check your inbox model is broken. That's really good because, especially for a copywriter, it's like, well, how can it be wrong? And I would play on that. I would go further with the idea that makes me think, why it's wrong, why you shouldn't want readers to check their inbox to get your email, or something like that. That makes them think, well, how can that possibly be a bad thing? Target something they firmly believe 100% is the truth. Like, I want my readers to check for my emails, and say why Daniel does not want readers to check for his emails in the inbox or something that you just think, how could that possibly be true? So that was a good idea that was then spoiled by adding too much detail.
Great point. Okay. What if no matter what learned it again, EQ filter stands out to me in this batch, but we already know what it is. It's not their fault because they wrote fresh bullet, but let's just see how they did with it. Learn Daniel's EQ filter technique to write and edit Netflix entertainment show, to edit like Netflix entertainment show writers and unbeatable. Yeah, it's just again, this is a lot to unpack. I got to think about what this is. Do I know what this is? Do I know what this looks like? Another thing Paris always says is, if I were watching it on the screen, what would I see? I mean, talk about visual storytelling, and like pretty much every piece of copy would be like, just show me what I would see if I was seeing it on a screen. And if I have to stop, and I have shows I watch where I have to go back. It's usually because it's like, what the hell did that guy mumbles? What did he say? But sometimes you're like, wait a minute, which character was that? And you'll do that, but the concept shouldn't force you to do that. Okay. These again, and I just want to caveat all this, and I'm sure Daniel does too. Like, this is all in the spirit of growth and learning. Like,
of course,
I know a lot of the copywriters who submitted are new. We are never about tearing down. If we were being the best teachers we could be right now, we would be following the rule of what if. I think we're doing that quite a bit, but I don't want anybody to feel like we're just tearing apart amateur copy. That's never our goal. I always say this, look, the moment you become a writer is when you begin to crave the harsh critique, because all you care about is getting good. And if it hurts a little to hear that you missed a point, usually what writers do, even in the new stages, are like, of course, like I should have known that. I think my only criticism that I don't apologize for newer writers is not taking the care to do the double, triple edit and read them aloud and make sure like, oh, this is something I'm really proud to present. Beyond that, wherever you're at, if you put effort into this, I commend you. I admire you. And this is helping you and everybody else who's a part of this grow. So I just wanted to say that. With that, back to the teardowns. These I always appreciate any bullet that's like really terse, because I'm rooting for it to be all it needed to be, to make its point.
Yep.
But these unfortunately were a little vague. How he won a sales letter contest without knowing what copy was. Well, again, we need to have a name here. So Daniel, let's just challenge ourselves to do what I said. The what if. What if we were going to rewrite this bullet about how you won a sales letter contest without even knowing what copywriting was? What does that need to be juicy?
Well, I actually like the core idea. The core idea is how someone who didn't know copywriting beat a bunch of copywriters. There is certainly something in that idea. And I think in the podcast, I may have talked about doing that. So I would be playing on that idea, how Daniel's first sales letter beat a bunch of professional copywriters by doing something is probably where I take that bullet. And I can't remember what we talked about, but by avoiding some mistake, by doing something, whatever I said I did in the podcast, that's the idea that I would want to get out of this bullet, is that newbie beats professionals. That is the essence of a good bullet.
Yeah, I might have fun with a common phrase like curse of knowledge and flip it to be the power of ignorance or something like the advantage of ignorance or something, right? How Daniel's first ever sales letter won a contest against known copywriters by using the power of ignorance or something like that. Because I'd be like, it's relevant, but I don't quite know what that is, right? Something like that.
That's really good.
Okay, cool. Again,
one more thing on these last two sets is that it's such a small thing, but don't end your bullets in zeros. Like it looks like you didn't put effort into it. And when I see it's such a small thing, but when you're at the timestamps. When it's at 10 minutes, 14 minutes, 30, it's just a very subtle thing, but there's something really juicy in knowing the exact second where something is. It's like, it gives me the feeling that I can turn there and there is that secret waiting for me.
That's right.
When you round the bullets, and I think this is because the transcript automatically did them as half minutes, but it just feels like when I see all the zeros in a row, I know something's up there, and it's so subtle, so subconscious, but there is a part of my brain that's disappointed, like, oh, I'm gonna have to do some work to find this stuff. I'm gonna land in the middle of the conversation, or something is not right about it to me. There's just more
no way
sexiness
they
to
all end on
telling
zero.
me exactly.
Yeah, it's the whole classic thing of page 71, page 79. If they were all like page 10, page 20, page 30, you'd be like, I don't believe you.
It would be really weird. Yeah.
Yeah, really good point. Okay, so there you go, everybody. And again, if we didn't dig into yours, apologies for time, but I think hopefully no matter what you submitted, you can see some of what we've been saying maybe in your bullets and use it to your advantage going forward. I want to get to the winners here, and let's do that. So first of all, I started with, we actually have four that we identified that we were really impressed by. And so we picked the top three, and we had one for honorable mention. And so honorable mention goes to Valentina. Valentina is a former winner, by the way, of the Bullet the Podcast competition, and she's a great copywriter and a super person. What did we like about these bullets? What stood out in these for you?
I've got to read back through these. So I like that, number one, we're avoiding the flowery length. A lot of the mistakes we just talked about, this one wasn't really making. Now, the reason this probably got number 4 from me is that there were a couple of bullets where it felt like a missed opportunity. Like, for example, the first one, boing, boing, boing. Daniel reveals how a series of grisly accidents skyrocketed his coffee shops, grabbed popcorn and a rubber ball. Like, it's got curiosity, but I just don't know what that means.
Yeah, it's
with the boing, 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 and I'm kind of confused. Yeah, that's that curse of knowledge thing again. There was espionage on the playground, a new blockbuster. No, it's what put Daniel on Kevin's radar. Again, that's that curse of knowledge thing. So there were a few bullets that kind of took it down, which is why it was probably number 4. But there were some really good ones in here. So no one's actually ever asked me that is really good. Okay, because you think, wow, this podcast contains something that I'm not going to get in any other podcast. So great pickup on that. Writer's block isn't real is pretty good for me. Learned Daniel's controversial take on the topic.
Is that the one where she took your subject line?
Yes, she did. She did.
I thought that was clever. I credit her for that. She did her research and she couldn't resist, and that would get my attention. That fun little take on hackneyed internet speak.
Definitely, that was a good one for sure. And there was. What am I looking for? Stop worrying about this. Yeah. I mean, I think these were a solid standard bullets. Like, I don't have one that I'll say like this is the greatest bullet I've ever read, but they were all of a pretty decent quality without the ones that I mentioned. And so that I think she was a very, very solid honorable mention here.
Yep. Crazy mode gets my attention for sure. And again, it's like, what do you do with attention once you get it?
Win an epic battle against Chris Orzechowski. I like the people who picked up on that, because this is one really good thing, by the way. Like, the most interesting thing to other people is people, right? The interperson drama in any industry, in any niche, like, they just want to know how the people interact. That's why tabloids are all about stories of what this celebrity said about this celebrity and their private lives and stuff. Like, people are the most interesting thing, especially when you've got like two people in a space that are talking to each other or at odds with one another. So epic battle against Chris Orzechowski is really good, because you've got some conflict between copywriters in the space. And whenever you can dig that up, if anything, I would have punched that one up by making it seem more dramatic. Like, there was some, and I think some of our winning bullets did that. They actually made it seem like, whoa, there's some beef between Daniel and Chris. It's like,
that must be coming up. Yeah, I remember somebody had a really good one. It was like Throssell versus Orzechowski or something like that. That was like, oh, that I have to read that. You know. Okay. Number 3, in third place, Fiona Tard. Congratulations. You'll be winning a t-shirt and lots of bragging rights. We agreed that these were both in our top 3.
Yeah. You got Throssell versus Orzechowski there. Like that's a great
That's the
grabber.
one. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Just a great example of ramping up drama. Find out how their head-to-head battle eliminates injustice and makes the world a better place, one scalping at a time. It's just fun. It's well written. It's tight. It's terse. It bounces to read. I don't have to work to read it. Really well done. This is thoughtful writing to me.
And this one here about Papa Kev accidentally spills one of the secrets in Daniel's upcoming storytelling course. I mean, that is one of the strongest ideas that I thought was in the podcast that I wanted to see people turn into a bullet. Because when you say, I would have written for that bullet, I actually said, Kevin, you're making me uncomfortable because this is the third thing you've said that I was going to put in a course. And I would have written a bullet like, you can actually hear Daniel squirm as Kevin accidentally blurts out a secret he was saving for an expensive course on email storytelling, right? That idea is so juicy. Like, Kevin spilled something Daniel wanted people to pay money for. And this one got that. You know, this 1321 bullet was on that. So I really like that. Yeah,
smart. Really good. And again, I think you'll notice in these, you know, winners category, they're not having to work to read them. I think that's the thing that you'll see.
Right. They're quite tight and easy to get through.
All right. Number 2, Lori Morgan. No surprise here. Lori is, you know, a great A-list copywriter, someone I've learned a lot from. She actually has a course on bullet writing. It's almost awkward not to choose Lori as the winner because she's an expert on bullet writing, but we'll explain why we ultimately chose one other batch. But Lori, these are amazing bullets. Again, it's interesting that they both had the boing, 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 the honorable mention of Valentina and Lori. I just thought it was a fun thing to pick up and start. But again, I think Lori did a great job of taking an attention grabber that will be sort of like paid off once they actually listen. And then did something really, you know, like you said, kind of tabloid worthy with it. The true story of how Daniel's balls got crushed by Kevin Rogers and John Carlton.
You know, like, if that was really good, and it got me thinking, like, this may be too risque for some copywriters to do, so I understand they wouldn't do it. But, you know, if you're going on that angle, the whole balls got crushed thing, like, I'd say go all the way and don't give away things with a boing. I mean, I actually like how Lori did it here. It went from the boing into the smash was a good addition, by the way. But if you said the time Kevin literally crushed Daniel's balls, admittedly it was an accident, but Kevin's still glad Daniel didn't die or something like that, or Daniel didn't get killed. It's like, if you say, let's say literally there and really misdirect the reader, because it was a physical rubber ball getting crushed. Okay, so you can really go hard on the misdirection there and say literally crush Daniel's balls. And, you know, I get it. It's a bit lowbrow for some copywriters, so that's fine. But if you're going to go that way, like go hard, and you'll really get people thinking, this is at least a comical story about Daniel getting injured. I have to read it. And that's why I would toss in the thing about Kevin's just glad Daniel didn't get killed, because you said that in the podcast. Right. And, you know, there is artful misdirection is such a great thing in bullets. And I like to use an admission which misdirects the reader even further. Like you say, like, Kevin's just glad that Daniel didn't get hurt. Or I have a bullet on one of my sales pages that says, you know, how to pre-test your open rates on someone else's email list before you even send an email. And then I have a little admission which says, I think this is legal if you do it the way I tell you. Now that's complete misdirection, because it's 100% legal. Okay. But by saying, I think it's legal, you're adding uncertainty in a very misleading direction. So that's a really good thing to do with bullets, if you can pull it off.
That's so good. Again, like just taking what you know to be the truth and making it more risque by saying, I think it's legal. Now I want to go find out if I think it's legal or not, right? You know, that is great.
And it's true. It's true, because I do think it's legal. I mean, I completely know it's legal, but I'm being less certain than I am, right? And
right. But you say, I promise it's legal. It's like, oh, well, that's no fun, right? He hopes it's legal.
The Kevin installing spyware bullet was really good. I mean, that was what we just mentioned, and I think it was phrased even stronger here. 3 hush storytelling strategies K-Man involuntarily spills.
Yeah,
so I think that was a good one.
You picked up on that well, and I really love how 7 kids were harmed in a Graceland accident using, again, the common understanding of something and punching them in the face with it is just great. Fantastic, Lloyd. All right. Our winner, congratulations to Kane Smith. And again, when I read Kane's bullets, I just thought, okay, this is just felt like he took his time. And I know that Kane is a steady working copywriter. He writes in the financial space, and I'm sure he just has to. This is a everyday practice for him to making sure every word he writes is where he wants it to be. And these are just a really tight group, and every one of them, again, none of them make me work, and I'm curious about just about every one of them to go understand what happened. So. First one, 2 master copywriters, Ramit Sethi, told Daniel to study when he was starting out. I have to know who those people are. I don't care how long I've been doing this. I don't care if it doesn't matter that I'm sure I know who they are. Maybe I don't know one of them. Who could these 2 people be that Ramit told Daniel, who I look up to now, go study? Like, I just have to know that.
Yeah, I thought one of the best things about what Kane did in his bullets is that, you know, we talked before about building your bullet on a strong idea. And I think every single one of these bullets, Kane did that. He started with a really powerful idea that just the idea by itself would be enough to make someone want to read. And then he built up on the solid foundation. So how to create raving superfans in as little as 2 hours. You could stop the bullet there, because that is a great promise. Superfans in 2 hours. And the best thing is it was better to say in 2 hours than to say instantly, because instantly is now in the realm of exaggeration. By saying in as little as 2 hours, you have some credibility to that bullet. So I think that one was fantastic. Yeah. I mean, I love all these bullets, really. What caused Daniel and email legend Chris Orzechowski to become fierce rivals? That is a great start. And then it gets even better by saying it has nothing to do with competing for market share. So you set up the drama, but then what you said, Kevin, was fantastic. The reader's always trying to beat you. They're always trying to guess your answer, especially copywriters. We think we're so smart because we write bullets and we can see through them. So you start by making you think, wow, what's the beef between them? They probably were just selling courses to the same market. And then you shut that possibility down. You say it has nothing to do with competing for market share, but everything to do with email supremacy. It's like, whoa, well, what is the beef? Now I have to know about this. So that was fantastically done.
It's more interesting to imagine there's an ego clash than there is a data clash, right?
Yeah.
Even this last one, the truth about Daniel's infamous fiery alter ego, the real reason, which indicates there's a reason you may think you already know, right? But now there's a real reason why he chooses to ditch his natural shyness and controversially wage war on his enemies. And again, if I know nothing about Daniel Throssell, and all I know is Kev says this guy's worth listening to and studying, and I read that bullet, I now know that you're naturally shy. You've got this huge personality in your copywriting, and you wage war against your enemies. This is the opposite of making me work to understand. Without me having to work to unpack anything, you've given me 3 things to look forward to learning about in the episode.
I love the in the 950 bullet hint. It's something your readers will commonly ask you to do, right? That's just a great little curiosity thing. You might be falling into this common trap. Hint, it's something your readers will commonly ask you to do. Now, we talked before about people kind of going too far with the promises based on the wrong foundation, but this is the total opposite. This is when adding words does help, when a longer bullet is better. So that hint makes the bullet even better. And a really good use, one really good use for continuing to expand a bullet is when there is a lingering answer in the reader's mind. Like, you always have to leave them thinking, I don't know. And so if you ask them a question and they guess an answer, even if it's the wrong answer, they're going to think they've got it right. So that's when you have to add more. You need to say, oh, by the way, the thing you're thinking is not right. And then they're like, well, now I have no idea. I have to find out. So that is a great example of doing that. You're adding more detail, saying it's something your readers will commonly ask you to do. And that makes me, even I read that, I was like, oh, shoot, it made me feel a bit insecure. Like, what are they asking me to do?
Right. I gotta go find out what that is. Yeah, you listen back. Yeah, I mean, really good stuff.
The time of day matters. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it's really good stuff.
Smart way to, again, take a kind of a simple little, it was almost an aside we had where we were talking about how I like to write in the morning, and you were like, I need to wait till something happens in my day to have something to write about, because you write every daily email. Yeah, so a lot of lessons here. I hope it was valuable for everybody. Congratulations, Kane, and all of our winners. And again, man, it's just everybody who dove in and engaged. Now you know exactly where you are, because you got to forget what we said. Your instincts kicked in when you looked at other people's bullets, and you either felt like, man, I got a long way to go, or, hey, I'm actually doing pretty good. And now hopefully we've given you context for exactly how to improve. Daniel, man, I can't be more appreciative of your time and all the fun engagement you've had in Copy Chief with this. And thanks again for agreeing to celebrate Kane and the victory in your own emails.
No, my pleasure. It's been a blast. And what a great community you've got in Copy Chief, really.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, special place. And, it's what we do, man. We got to grow. I had a place like this when I was starting out, where it went from me hoping to learn this stuff in a silo, and all of a sudden this whole world opened up to me. And we learned from everybody around us at all levels. So I appreciate it, man. And Daniel, I can't wait to release the episode and get all the feedback from it. And you and I will be in touch and talking real soon. I appreciate you, man.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me on, Kevin.
Thank you, buddy. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you inside Copy Chief. Bye. Good night.